We are live. Yes, we're live. All right. Hey, welcome everybody. My name is Luke. In this live lesson, we're going to be learning some stuff about English. So if you're an English learner, if you're interested in learning English, words, phrases, culture, and more, I hope you stick around for the whole thing. We're going to cover a lot of things, and also I will be answering some questions from you guys. Obviously, if you're watching this after, then you can't ask your questions, right? But you can join next time. So make sure to subscribe so that you can see when the live lessons are happening. Try to do them on Sunday or Tuesday. And also make sure you subscribe so that you can get my regular videos, which I post every Friday, depending on where you live. So Friday night, I live in the United States. Some people maybe would say it's Saturday morning. Anyway, that's what this is going to be. Again, we'll be answering some questions. So if you do have questions and you're watching later, just leave them in the comments or ask them next week. And so what we're going to do is, hey, Lolly's here. We're going to go through a couple of topics that I have prepared. And then in the middle of those topics, I'll be taking some questions. So get your questions ready. I think we'll wait a few minutes for some people to join the lesson. We have, of course, Lolly. I know it's been a while. And Remy and Flavio. Hey, everybody. If you don't know me, my name is Luke, and I am an English teacher. I've been teaching English for a long time. I'm from the United States, and I teach here on YouTube, and of course I teach on other platforms as well, like Udemy and Skillshare. So if you're interested in learning more seriously, I recommend checking out my links in the description for Udemy and Skillshare. I have full courses on lots of things like pronunciation and grammar and how to speak more correctly, how to think in English, all that stuff, business English, and so on. Hello, Lolly, the lady who got a free course that she didn't take. I'm able to see that stuff. All right. So, guys, get your questions ready. Oh, Yarmila's here. That's very good. From the Czech Republic. Fantastic. Get your questions ready. I'm going to start with the topic for today, and then we'll get into some questions. All right. So we're going to start with something that's kind of different about English. Well, I suppose not different about English, but interesting about English. The English language has many words that have many meanings and many uses. Or we could say they have a different usage depending on the situation. So if you're maybe thinking about one situation, you might use this word there, or you might use it in a different way somewhere else. Completely different. Okay, same word, same spelling. So that's what we're going to talk about. We're going to focus on the word light. Simple word, right? Very simple word. Everybody knows, I'm sure everybody knows the word light. But what does it mean? How many different ways can we use it? In fact, there are so many different ways to use the word light that we can't talk about all of them here, because it would take hours and hours to go through all of the examples of the different usages of the word and how it could be used in different situations. So we're going to try to cover the main feelings that the word creates in different situations and how it can be used, for example, as a noun, how it can be used as a verb, and how it can be used as an adjective. To be clear, the word light can be used as a noun, as a verb, and as an adjective. Okay, so we'll be learning all of those. We're going to go through some examples, all right? Before we do, guys, don't forget to hit the like button. Don't forget to subscribe, but the like button is maybe more important than anything else. Maybe the most important thing in the world is the like button. at least to me. All right, so let's look at these examples and then kind of talk about how this word works, what it means in different situations. We'll start with the simple one. Do you see that light in the distance? Okay, now, do you see that light in the distance? We're talking about the basic thing, okay? Light in this situation is a thing that is, we say, luminous, a luminous thing. Actually, light is made up of what's called photons. That's more the scientific definition. Photons are light. They're little packets of light energy, right? So I guess that's the most basic meaning, but we don't really talk about photons very often. So as of now, we might say, what is that light in the distance there? What is that light? We don't know what it is exactly. We don't know what's causing it, but it is over there, and we see it amid the darkness. Now, it could be just a thing floating around in the sky. It could be a thing connected to a bug. A lightning bug has a light on its abdomen, on its butt, right? So it could be that. When we say it this way, we're not connecting it to any object. We're not connecting it to anything that causes light or makes light. So it's one of the most basic ways to use it. You see that light over there? Oh, yeah, I see that. What is that? Then we go over there and we say, oh, it's a lightning bug. Ah! Right? Well, you wouldn't smack a lightning bug, right? They don't bite. So why would you do that? So that's the basic idea. But then we have the thing that makes light, which is also called a light. So the second way to use it is this one. I bought that light from Ikea. Now, does that mean that the light is always on and we can only call it a light when it's on? Oh, it's a light. And then you turn it off and you say, oh, I don't know what it is. It's just some machine that makes light, but it's off now. No, we call it a light as well. So just because something is called a light doesn't mean it's always creating light, right? I have many lights on in this room right now. There's one up there, there's one right there, there's one right there, there's one right there, there's one right there. Many lights. So that's a very common way to use it as a noun. I bought this light from Ikea. Oh, that's a cool light. That's a cool light. Oh, thank you. I like the design. I like the shape. I like it. It's cool. I bought it from Ikea. So simple. That's easy, right? But we're not talking about the luminous thing. It makes the luminous thing. It creates the photons, right? But we're not talking about those photons right now. Okay, so that's another way to use it. One more of these. Actually, there's a lot more. But this is the last one of this exact type. The light or lighting is actually a little more common in this situation. In this restaurant is perfect. If you ever go into a restaurant and you think, wow, the atmosphere in here is so nice. I like it. It's moody. It's a little dark, and there are lights on here and there, which give it a feeling of sort of warmth, maybe. Or maybe it feels secluded. Each table feels like it has its own space, right? Maybe it's a fancy restaurant with tiny food that's this big that costs $900. Well, you might say when you go in, well, I really like the light in this restaurant. But for that one, the one that creates the atmosphere, the environment, we might say lighting. So what's the difference here? Are we talking about the things that create the light that we buy from Ikea? No. But those things are creating this atmosphere. Are we talking about the light over there? We don't know what's making it? No, but there are those too, right? There are lights around the room that are creating the atmosphere. But when we talk about light in this way, I like the lighting of this restaurant. It's so cool. I like the vibe, V-I-B-E vibe. We're talking about the light that surrounds us, right? And the feeling that it creates overall, sort of the design of the light in a way, the way that it interacts with the room, the way that it makes us feel when we look at it. So it's another way to use it. We could use light, we could use lighting. Okay, so that's basically how we use it simply as a noun. Someone asked, I think, what Ikea was. Ikea is a place where you buy furniture. It's from Sweden. It's probably the most famous Swedish brand. They make good furniture, and they have large stores all around the world. where they sell their own furniture with weird names. Yeah. All right, so let's continue. We're still talking about light. We have a lot more to talk about. We still got to go. All right. Maybe talking to her will shed some light on this mystery. Maybe talking to her will shed some light on this mystery. What is this all about? Are we talking about some physical light? A mystery is something that's in our minds, right? Some problem that we're trying to solve, something we don't understand. That's a mystery, right? Yes. So when we say shed some light on the mystery, what does that mean? What is that all about? Well, imagine that the mystery is a thing, a physical thing, right? But it's dark. The room is so dark we can't see anything. We're trying to look at this mystery, which is in this little box, and I can't see it. It's too dark. Then we turn some light on, or we have a flashlight and we shine it at that. We've shed some light on the mystery. But now, mysteries aren't really physical in the way that you hold them. You can't hold them in your hand, right? So it's that idea, but it's in a non-physical way. So when we discover new information, when we do something to try to see more into a mystery, to try to discover more about it, we say, shed some light on this mystery. Totally don't understand what's going on. There's a dark thing over there in the corner. It's very mysterious. I don't understand it. I want to find out more. Shine some light on it. Maybe, if this is a detective story, I'm finding clues. I'm looking for information. I'm trying to figure out what is happening here. So I talk to a witness. You've probably seen movies, TV shows where the detectives will talk to a witness. What were you doing on the night of Thursday, the 23rd of July? Oh, I was at home watching TV. Do you have an alibi? Yes, my sister was with me. All right, I need to talk to your sister. So they're trying to shed some light on the crime that they're trying to solve. So we use it that way. So it's not the literal meaning of light, but we still use it in this way. I think it's very interesting. I like this one. I think this one's cool. But not literal, right? If you go there, you may see things in a new light. You may see things in a new light. So this is a similar idea, but it's a little different, okay? This means I might understand something from a different angle. I might look at something from a new angle that I hadn't considered before. So maybe I go talk to her, the person who might be involved with this crime, and then she tells me something that makes me look at the crime in a whole new way. I see it in a whole new light now. But it's not only for solving mysteries and solving crimes. Maybe you make a friend and you have an attitude about something, right? You say something like, you know what? People who drop out of school, they're just lazy. But then you meet someone who drops out of school and they start a business and they become very successful, and you talk to them. And wow, maybe people who drop out of school aren't all lazy idiots. Maybe some do it for a good reason. I'm starting to see this in a whole new light, this issue of dropping out of school. Maybe I'm changing my opinion. It's like getting a different perspective on something. That's the basic idea. So when we talk about this second one, if you go to this place, you may have an experience which will give you a new kind of perspective. All right, moving along, guys, moving along. We still have more to talk about here, more to say. We lit the Christmas tree at midnight. What if someone lights it on fire? Don't light up a cigarette near me. Now, these are all basically the same idea, so we can talk about these pretty quickly, I think. We lit the Christmas tree. Lit is the past tense of light. Now, is this a noun like the ones before? No, it's a verb. We lit the Christmas tree at midnight, past tense. Lit, L-I-T. Now, lit has another meaning that has nothing to do with this, but we can maybe talk about that at another time. What if someone lights it on fire? Well, if someone lights it on fire, then obviously it will be destroyed. That's a verb. Light it on fire. Don't light up a cigarette near me. Maybe I don't like when people smoke near me. So don't light up a cigarette near me. Don't do it. The action of That's not how people smoke. The action of that's not how people smoke either. But anyway, you get the idea. That is lighting up a cigarette, the action. So the verb of light, I think, is pretty easy. It just means to create a light. Could be with fire. Lighting the Christmas tree is probably not with fire, right? We light up the Christmas tree, or we light the Christmas tree means we've covered the Christmas tree in lights, Christmas lights, and then we plug those lights in, and then zing, the lights turn on. So we lit up the Christmas tree. That's not catching it on fire. We're not burning the Christmas tree to the ground. That's not a good idea. All right, so hopefully that's clear. We've got a few more. Let's now go into the last one with adjectives. Adjectives for light. Now, these are the most interesting, I think, my opinion, okay? My view. But I just want to be clear that we're not covering all the meanings of light in this. There are so many more. It's just that it would take us 9 hours to talk about all of the possible ways to use it. Okay, so we're just covering some of the basics, all right? How about this one? I had very light hair as a child. I had very light hair as a child. What are we talking about here? Light hair as a child. Well, you can see now that I have pretty dark brown hair, right? It's not black hair, but it's pretty dark brown. Light hair is more blonde. Now, when I was a child, I didn't have blonde hair, but I had sort of very light brown hair. Very light brown when I was a child. So we say light brown in this way means not dark. Very light, very dark. Dark, light, light, dark. So this light is the opposite of dark. It's an adjective, and you can use it for all kinds of things. Oh, I like this light fabric. I prefer this light fabric, right? We're talking about color, light, dark. But then we can translate that to things like food, things like taste, right? And other things as well, but it's based on the light-dark thing. So you can have a light beer and dark beer, but to be clear, that means two different things. A light beer could be that the color is kind of lighter, but there are other names for it. Usually when we say light beer, we're talking about a beer that doesn't have many calories. So a beer with fewer calories. There's a regular beer, maybe a stout or a porter or a lager, and then we have a light beer like Bud Light or Amstel Light or Miller Light, or there's so many light beers. So you could say that light means that it's light in color, which is one basic meaning, sort of like light hair, but generally light here, when we use it like this, light means, do I have the beer one? I feel like I put the beer one in the next set. Let me show you these. Yeah. Yes. Do you like light beer? The last one here. The last one. Do you like light beer? Okay, let's go back to these, though. These bricks are lighter than I expected. Lighter than I expected. So this one, we're not talking about color, a light color or a dark color. We're talking about light as opposed to heavy. Light, dark, opposites. Light, heavy, opposites. Both adjectives. These bricks are lighter than I expected. Maybe they look very heavy, and I get ready to pick it up thinking, oh, it's going to be so heavy, and then whoop, it's very easy to pick up. It's not very heavy. So lighter than I expected. I tend to prefer lighter cuisines, like Japanese. All right, so if I prefer lighter cuisines, that means I don't like very heavy cuisines, like maybe German food tends to be very heavy, or certain American dishes tend to be very heavy. Heavy, more like the feeling I get when I eat those cuisines, those types of food. Whereas some cuisines are very light. Maybe certain French cuisines or certain types of French food can be light, and Japanese food is famous for being very light. So this one is the opposite of heavy too, but not heavy to lift up. It doesn't mean the food itself is easier to carry around. No, it's more like the feeling that you get from the food when you're eating it, right? Afterward, do you feel heavy or do you feel light? That's kind of the difference. That's the basic difference. Okay, we have one more to talk about here, okay? One more to talk about. Now, I mentioned the beer thing. Do you like light beer? So there we're talking about something similar to not the full thing, right? light beer, something similar to not the full beer, not a lager there. Now, that could be related to calories. It could also be related to taste. You could say, this beer has a very light taste. I really like it. I like the taste. It's so light. Okay. Now, the other ways we can use it here, your handwriting is so light I can barely read it. That means that it's faint, that you didn't push down hard on the paper with the pencil or the pen, and so it's difficult to read because maybe the strokes that you used are so thin. It's very light. Maybe it's not that it's so thin, but you just didn't push down hard enough, and because you didn't push down hard enough, well, I can't really see it very well, right? The last one here, are you a light sleeper? In fact, we can say light sleeper, and the opposite is, can you guess? Heavy sleeper. Light sleeper, heavy sleeper. Light sleeper, heavy sleeper. Okay? They're opposites. Heavy sleeper is someone who will not wake up even if a train goes through their bedroom. Right? Like me. When I sleep, I don't wake up very easily. I'm out. I'm a very heavy sleeper. But my wife is a very light sleeper. If someone walks into the room and the floor squeaks a little bit, she'll go, huh? Right? She wakes up very easily because she's a light sleeper. So that's how we use light in the adjective sense, as a verb and as a noun. Again, those are not all of the ways that we can use the word light. Hopefully now it is more clear, though, and if you had any confusion before, you generally have the sense for it. So look out for other examples, and don't forget to hit the like button. I would really appreciate that. Don't forget to subscribe. Also, subscribe so that you can see future videos and see what's going on the channel. And also check out my full courses in the links in the description. Okay. So I might have missed some questions. I am curious if you guys guessed any of these. Yarmila says, Pilsner, light beer. There you go. How much does it cost for a post-graduation program in France? Lolly lolly. Interesting, because we will be talking about university, so we can get into the cost stuff as well. I do want to answer any questions you guys have, so now's the time. If you have any questions about anything, now's the time to ask them. Lolly lolly says, light adjective, not heavy in weight. Correct. Very good. I'm assuming you guessed that before I mentioned it, right? Drink a little water here. I have few pieces of furniture from Ikea in my home. I like its simple style. Yeah, Ikea furniture is very simple. I like it too. I have, in fact, the desk that this computer is sitting on is from Ikea. That bookshelf is from Ikea. Anything else? Yeah, my sofa is from Ikea. Another lit means drunk. Last night you were super lit. It can be used that way. Another way to use lit is, or another meaning of it is awesome. But it's so people under my age might say that. My generation doesn't usually use it, but below my generation, they're starting to use lit to mean like super cool or awesome. Hi from SPB. What's SPB? What is SPB? The lesson is very light for me. What does that mean? I don't know if I should take that as a compliment or be deeply, deeply hurt by it. Hi, Luke. Could you please explain what it means when one says that a woman is handsome? Well, first I would say that it's not common. So let's look at this question. This is actually quite interesting. I'm going to pop this up. If you don't mind, Art, I'm going to pop this up on the old screen here so everybody can see it. No pressure. If you guys submit comments, I might put them up here for all to see. In which case, well, got to make sure you spell correctly. But you know what? I think Art did, except for not putting a space between the comma and Luke, the exclamation and could should be a space there. Otherwise, looks pretty good. Yeah, looks pretty good. Nice job. All right. So, hello, Luke. Could you explain, please, what it means when one says that a woman is handsome? Now, some of you might think when you see this question, get out of here. Get out of here, Art, with your handsome comment. Women can't be handsome. Handsome is a word used for men, right? However, that's not quite right. Now, I want to be very clear that it's not usually used for women. Most of the time, the word handsome is used to describe men, right? It's commonly a masculine male word. And we use beautiful or cute or elegant or gorgeous for women, right? We wouldn't say, usually, we wouldn't say a gorgeous man. But there are times when we might use those words for the other gender. And let's talk about when we can do that. A handsome woman might be a woman that may be beautiful, sure, but that gives sort of an elegant sense to others, a sense of being not royalty, right? Not royalty like a king, like a queen, I should say. Not quite like that, but definitely a more formal sense. A woman who maybe dresses in a certain way or level of formality that gives a sense that this person is very classy, that this person is very elegant. And sometimes we use that for other things as well. Someone might say a very handsome cat. You could say the word handsome for cat. Now, we don't usually use it that way, but when we get that impression that there is some kind of formality or elegance involved, we might use the word handsome. Now, it doesn't mean that the woman is manly, to be clear. It doesn't mean that the woman is manly, but maybe there is just that sense of elegance. Okay, so or a royal sense. I want to use the word royal. That's the sense I get when someone uses it like that. Now, it is kind of antiquated. Antiquated means it's kind of old-fashioned. People don't usually use the word handsome woman. But when they do, it sort of sounds like that. It's a very handsome woman. It's kind of formal. And it's definitely not used casually. Okay, so that's how we would use that. Now, could someone say a gorgeous man? Has anyone ever said a gorgeous man? Yes. Yes. Now, sometimes it's used ironically, meaning that when a woman sees an extremely handsome man with big muscles who's perfect in every way, he's gorgeous, women might say of that man. He's gorgeous. As though the level has been exceeded. Handsome no longer is good enough to describe the characteristic of this man. He's like a statue, a sculpture, a work of art. His muscles and his perfect jawline or whatever it is that's perfect, right? Often for hunks, big strong guys whose bodies look like a work of art. We say, oh, he's gorgeous. He's gorgeous. You might see that in movies as well. And I want to be clear, usually handsome is used for men and gorgeous is used for women, but you'll hear them sometimes going the other way. So that's how it works. I hope that answers your question, Art. It's a good question. It's an interesting question. I like it. Hi, Sleepwalker. Light food, easy to digest. I think you could say that. Yeah, easier to digest. Because when you eat something very heavy, you feel kind of slow because your body is using all of its energy to process the food, right? There's a region in China called Dongbei, which I often go to. And the food there is very heavy. It's delicious. It's tasty. I like it. But it's very heavy. So after I eat a big meal, I feel, like I'm going to die. In a good way. Like I'm going to die in a good way. If that makes sense. All right. Let's see here. Light can be pale in color. Like skin color? Absolutely. So I mentioned before hair color being light. I had light hair as a child. We could certainly say light-colored skin, very light skin. You could use it in different ways. Someone who's, for example, black may have light skin for a black person. Or someone who's white may have light skin for a white person. You can use it in lots of different ways. Alan says, why can't I read English? That is a very good question. I would need a little more information, I think, to answer that one. My question would be, how can you write that question if you can't read English? That's the more interesting question. Luke, what does it mean? What does this mean when somebody says she was so extra, called her etc.? She was so extra, called her etc. I got to say, Yuri, I've never heard that before in my entire life. I mean, I know what extra means, and I know what etc. means. Extra means more than what you had before, or more than usual. Etc. means on, or and so on, without saying those things, usually written etc. But this sounds like maybe a song lyric or something, in which case I would have to listen to the song first. Some people have asked, hey Luke, is listening to music a good way to learn English? In my opinion, no. So that is a very common question. So maybe I should talk about that for a second. What are the best ways to learn English? And can I learn English by listening to music? It's a good question. Can I learn English by listening to movies? Absolutely. I should say watching movies. Listening to movies, watching movies, right. You can easily learn English by watching movies. You're listening to people speaking in situations. But when it comes to music, I think it's not a great way to learn English. And let me explain very simply why I think that. When you're listening to music, the main goal of music is to maybe create an impression or give a certain feeling, but not to have clear sentences. It's not necessary for someone writing the lyrics of a song to use full sentences. And you can kind of do whatever you want with grammar. And often, music, especially modern music, has no grammar at all. One song might just be 2 words repeated over and over again. Also, the words are changed. Often when singers sing, instead of saying, for example, going, they might say goin'. And so there are a lot of abbreviations. There are a lot of very maybe local things, depending on where the musician comes from. There's a lot of slang that's used. And as I said, the grammar doesn't really follow any rules. It's kind of whatever, because the purpose of the song is to sound good and communicate some kind of feeling or get some basic idea across, right? Also, basically, lyrics in music, it's poetry. And poetry, I would also not recommend as a way to learn English, especially for middle-level English learners, because it's kind of hard to understand. The poet writes the lyrics of a poem or writes the lyrics of a song so that it might have different interpretations. You think it means this, and you think it means that, and I think it means this. And when I wrote it, I meant this. But everyone thinks it means something else. Now, that's great, because that's what makes music personal to each person. This song means so much to me, because people feel like it's for them, because they can sort of put their own meaning onto the song. That's what poetry is all about. One of the things that poetry is all about. But as a way to learn English, you wouldn't want to speak like a song. Nobody speaks like people sing in a song. Nobody. And most people don't use even many of the specific words used in a lot of song lyrics, because they're either really long, or they're shortened, or they're put out of order, or in some way not in the way that people speak. So I don't recommend using music to learn English. I think it's a bad way to learn English. I think it will confuse you more than it helps you. Now, if you're just interested in music and you like to learn and sing lyrics, that's great. That's fine. I'm not saying don't listen to music, but don't use it as your English learning tool. Watching TV shows and watching movies and watching videos, much more effective. Why? Because you're learning real spoken English. It's how people talk. The grammar is pretty much correct. The words are actually words that people say in daily life. If you go around saying things like you hear in songs, people will feel deeply confused, and they might throw ice cream at you. So, my advice: avoid it. All right. Hopefully that answers that question. That's just how I feel about it. Some teachers like to use songs to learn English. I just haven't seen it work for anybody. I just don't think it's a very good idea. I don't like it. Luke, bit off topic. What is exactly the N-word? Why do black people get insulted by that? Wow. Okay. Well, I'll do my best to answer this one. So, in the United States, there is a history of slavery, as I think most people know. So, for a very long time, black people were brought from Africa in the slave trade to the colonies at the time, or what is now the United States, to work as slaves. Now, for a very long time, obviously that meant a very large gap between black people and white people. One group works for the other, one group is free, one group is not. One group owns the other group, okay? And so that's a pretty dark past when you think about it, right? Now, obviously, that has been abolished a long time ago, 1865. Basically, that ended with something called the 13th Amendment to the Constitution. Slavery ended. But after that, that wasn't the end of problems. After that, especially in the southern states of the United States, there were a lot of issues, a lot of problems, a lot of racist attitudes from white people toward black people. So that might have been actual violence against black people. That might have been rules to make it unfair for black people to live comfortably, right? So that might be some things like Jim Crow laws are these laws that made it more difficult for black people to participate in, for example, elections. And segregation. You might have heard of the story of Rosa Parks, who is a famous story, started the civil rights movement in the United States because she had to sit in the black section of a bus in Montgomery, Alabama in 1955, I believe. And the law was you have to get up if a white passenger says get up. And a white passenger said get up because the white section was full. She didn't. She said no. So she was arrested. She was sent to jail. And then that started the boycott of the bus system in Montgomery, Alabama. And then that started the what's called Civil Rights Revolution, which led to more rights and more equality for black people in the United States. But that doesn't mean things are perfect even now. Even now, there is still racism. There are still deep issues. Now, it's much better, obviously. And I think it's getting better and better and better. But there's still racism, and there is that dark past. So that's the background. Why do I say all of that before answering this question? Well, this word, which we call the N-word, is a single thing that sort of represents all of that darkness that I talked about in the past. And so if a white person says it, and I would say not if a white person says it, because maybe someone might say it in the context of education. I'm not going to say it, but someone might say it in the context of education or talking about it and its background and its history and why it has the meaning it has. And I think that's fine. I think it's more about the intention. Someone who says it with the intention of hate toward black people, that is extremely insulting. That is a terrible thing to say, about as bad as it can get. And there are people still who are racist toward black people who use that word in that way to convey their hatred toward black people. That's a fact. So the interesting thing that has happened then is that in the black community, or at least parts of the black community, and in a lot of hip-hop music and a lot of rap music, you hear that word used among black people. So it's sort of like taking this thing, this word, which is a symbol or a hateful sound, and taking it on yourself and using it to sort of release the hatred from it in a way. And so in parts of the black community, especially in hip-hop music, you hear it a lot. And it's used more like in a sort of friendly way. But that doesn't mean that the white people can go around saying it usually. And I would argue, I would say, maybe some people can in some situations when it's related to sort of education, or they don't mean it in a hateful way, right? So it's interesting how words change, and it is definitely an important part of every language that words change their meaning based on history. Words change their meaning based on the events that happen in popular culture, in music, and that's something that we've seen with this word. And who knows, maybe in 50 years, everyone will be able to say this, and there will be no longer any negativity attached to it. So it'll be very interesting to see how the word evolves over time. But it has definitely evolved in the last, whenever it started. Maybe it was, I think it started probably 100 years ago, maybe more. I don't know the exact history of this specific word. If you're ever curious about the history of words, you can just Google it. This word, and then search the word etymology, and then you can find out the exact history of the word. So I hope that answers your question. Your question was, why do black people get insulted by it? And I can't speak for black people because I'm white, but I can say that it's because of the history, and I would not say that it is insulting in every situation. It's more about the intention behind the use of it. I've never used it, but that's just because I don't want to go there, if that makes sense. So hopefully that answers your question. By the way, if you guys haven't already, make sure you subscribe, hit the like button, and if you haven't already, make sure to check out my courses in the links in the description. And I hope my explanation is somewhat clear. I hope. It's a tough question, honestly. Art says, thanks, Luke, and how to understand the phrase, did you find everything okay? Especially the part okay. Okay. Did you find everything okay means, did you have any issues finding it, basically. Okay generally just means it's fine. Okay generally just means there were no difficulties. I'm okay. That means I have no problems. I'm fine. Everything is good. So the way that it's phrased is a little weird, I agree. I totally agree. But it's sort of just happened this way, and we just have to learn. That's just how people say it. It's a simple way, it's a short way of saying, did you find anything, or did you have any difficulties finding anything, or finding everything that you wanted to find? Did you have any problems finding whatever you wanted to find? Easy way to say that is, did you find everything okay? Yeah. All right. You are very prepared, Luck. No, I'm not. Someone asked me that question about the N-word. That's a tough one to answer. I mean, I didn't prepare for that question, obviously, but that's a tough one to talk about. It's a sensitive question. Only do my best. Yeah, one thing I think is ridiculous about that is there was a guy, a white guy, who worked at Netflix company, and he said that word not in any sort of hateful way toward anybody, but as a reference. Like, we are not going to use the word and said the word, the N-word. And because of that, he was fired. So there is where I think there are some problems. I think that's not the point of moving forward. That's not progress, is it? Progress is removing the hate from things. Like how that word is losing its energy in the culture because of hip hop music, right? That's good. That's progress. But someone being fired just for saying it because it's to explain why this is part of some policy about words that we're not going to say, it's not helping anything. I think it's ridiculous. It's all about what is the intention behind your words, right? What do you mean when you say that? Do you have hate towards someone when you say that and you want to hurt them with your words? All right. Yes, that's bad. In this case, that's racist. And you can use other words with the same negative intention directed at someone. Yes, that's bad. But if I say that word because I'm trying to accomplish something else, I don't see what the issue is. But recently, I feel like it's become a little too sensitive almost, and it's preventing actual progress. That's just my opinion. Some people are too sensitive, especially on Twitter. Hi, I want to ask a question about vocab. I use 4,000 Essential Words by Paul Nation and to learn vocab. Do you think it's a good selection? I actually, Timur, I actually don't know that particular. I don't know that particular one. I'm so sorry about that. Yeah, I don't know. I can look it up if you like. I might have heard that title, 4,000 Essential. I'm kind of curious. If you guys don't mind just sitting here with me as I search it, I want to see if it's the one I'm thinking of. 4,000 essential. This is good. This is good material, right? This is good content. Watching Luke search things on his phone. Hooray. Yuri says he could have just said we're not going to use the N-word. Yes, I suppose you're right, but 4,000 Essential Words by Paul Nation. Oh, no, this is not the word that I'm thinking, or not the book that I'm thinking of. I wouldn't feel good recommending it just because I don't know, right? I know that there are some really good vocabulary books out there for learning essential vocabulary. There's one that's visual that makes a picture with every word, which I think is awesome. But I just don't know it, and so I can't recommend it. Although it does have 4.5 out of 5 stars on Google, so that's pretty good. That's pretty good. Sorry, Timur. Wish I could help better. All right, I have one more thing I want to talk about. And I will answer more of your questions later, but I have one more thing I want to discuss. One more thing I did prepare for. Before we get started with that, guys, please, if you haven't already, please hit the like button. That would be awesome. And the reason is just because that's the thing that tells YouTube, please, other people who want to learn English and maybe learn more about culture and stuff can benefit from, this channel. So hit the like button. That'd be awesome. And subscribe and check out my courses. I recently finished a course called Master Native English, and it is 15 and a half hours long, and I am very proud of it. Within 2 months, it has already got 300 reviews, which is crazy. Very fast. And I'm very pleased with the reactions. Right now it has 4.6 out of 5-star reviews, which is very good. And it's going very well. So check that out as well as my other courses. But that one in particular, I think it's on sale. And if it's not on sale at the moment, it probably will be very soon for Valentine's Day, probably very cheap. So yeah, I would strongly recommend it if you're learning seriously. It's pretty long, though. So, all right. What I want to talk about now let's go to that. Let's go to the next thing. Next thing. Well, this is something that somebody asked me recently, and I thought I would just talk about it. This is not really language specifically, more of culture. What is the process of getting into university in the United States? I had 3 people ask me this question in 1 week, so it made sense for us to sort of go through it. What is the process? Now, part of this process would be true also for someone abroad, not in the United States. If they want to get into a university in the United States, if they want to apply to a university. But not everything. It's a little different for someone who's studying abroad in high school, and we can perhaps talk about that in another video. But I want to mention one thing before we really talk about this process, and that is that you'll hear a lot of people in the United States actually use the word college instead of university. So just be aware of that. We hear people say, I'm going to go to college. How am I going to pay for college? I've decided not to go to college. So when they say that, they mean university. And abroad, outside of the United States, a lot of people use university instead. So Americans are often more comfortable with the general word college, which they use to mean kind of everything. So let's just go through this process. We're going to talk about what it's like in the United States, what requirements a university may have, and then we'll talk about what happens after that once you've applied. Okay, so let's start with the basic criteria. Criteria means the requirements that the university has of students, the things that they're looking at when they're making a decision. So in the United States, we have what we call the SAT and the ACT. These are 2 different tests, SAT and ACT. Now, if you are outside of the United States and you want to go to a university to get an undergraduate degree or a bachelor's degree, then you probably still have to take the SAT, maybe not the ACT. So they're very similar, in fact. They cover many areas of knowledge that a person who's finishing high school should have. English, grammar, some logic problems, math problems, like looking at graphs and trying to solve for x, that sort of thing. Questions about history. There are things that are covered, a variety of topics in these tests, and the score will then determine a couple things. How serious you were in high school, perhaps, because you should have most of this knowledge, and your general intelligence. Are you able to solve a problem in a limited period of time? So they're kind of knowledge tests, but also they're kind of intelligence tests, sort of combined. We don't use IQ to evaluate students for university. We use these tests. Now, actually, SAT is broader and more widely accepted, and ACT is a little more narrow, but I think most universities also look at ACT very seriously. The scoring is different, but both are pretty important. When I was getting ready for college, I think I took the ACT twice, and I took the SAT once. So you can take them more than once. If you want to take it twice, you can do that. A lot of countries, they have one test, one exam. Like China, they have the Gaokao. You take that, you do badly, your life is over. If you do well, you're going to have a good life. This is one chance. In America and the United States, you can take them several times. You have, I don't know if there's a limit to the number of chances, but you can definitely take them more than once, for sure. So then they look at what's called a GPA, or grade point average. And this is also something that's different compared to a lot of other countries. So when you do homework, when you do assignments, when you do projects, when you take exams, when you go to every single class, this all adds up to your grade. And your grade might be an A, might be a B, might be a C, might be a D, might be an F. Now, there's no E, okay? There's no E. A, B, C, D, and F. Then you have an A minus, an A plus, B minus, B plus, C minus, C plus, and F. I think F is just F, yeah. So All of this averaged together in high school, which in the United States is 4 years, makes up your GPA or your grade point average. This is something that universities look at very seriously too, but not to evaluate your knowledge or your intelligence. That's what the exams are for. They look at your grade point average usually to evaluate more you as a person, because you have to work very hard if you want to get a perfect grade point average. The top grade point average is a 4.0. A 4.0. It's averaged together. So if you get something like all A's on average in every class in high school, and then you get 1 B+, then your GPA, your 1 B+ in 4 years, 1 B in 4 years, your GPA might be something like 3.99, something like that, right? Or 3.9, 3.98. So that's how that works. And then the university, when they're evaluating applicants, they say, okay, well, 3.98 or 4.0. This student is very hardworking. They're smart. They're able to learn things quickly, and they're able to do well in all areas. In homework, which is hard work. In exams, which is knowledge and intelligence, right? So it's a good way to evaluate students, but it's a bit different than the exams themselves. Then we have the class difficulty. So if a student got a 4.0, but they took easy classes, that's different from a student who got maybe a 3.98 and took all advanced classes. Sometimes they're called AP classes. But you could choose in high school, take the easy classes, whatever's easiest, or I might take an advanced science class. I'll choose that, and the university will look at your class records, which is called your transcript. They'll say, oh, wow, they took all advanced classes. This person is trying to challenge themselves. Now notice that we're not only looking at one aspect of the student who's applying. We're looking at many different aspects: intelligence, work ethic, their personality, in a sense, which we'll talk about next. And so they're trying to understand this student overall. And the university will sometimes talk about this person, this application, and look at all of these things combined to decide if they're going to offer admission to this student. That's how it works. Okay, the other thing they look at is to figure out the student's personality, their character, is extracurriculars or extracurricular activities. What is this student involved in after school? Nothing? Many things? This tells the university if the student is going to be active and involved in the community of the university. If this student is involved in the chess club, or maybe the debate club, or maybe plays volleyball or golf or whatever it may be after school. Most American high schools, again, 4 years, have lots of things you can do after school throughout the year. I was in quite a few clubs and groups and on several teams. For example, I played golf when I was in high school, and I was on what was called the Academic Challenge team, which is sort of a quiz challenge. We did that against other schools. So this is a thing to sort of get a feeling about this student's level of engagement with the community. That's also very important. The other thing they look at is the community and their activism. So a lot of students will not only involve themselves in stuff related to school after school, but will have maybe projects that they do. Cleaning up trash, or volunteering at a hospital on the weekend, or starting a group that's focused on the environment and doing something locally. And they might share that in the letter that they write. Now, the letter is very important. The application letter that you write to the university is extremely important because, number one, it tells the university more about you personally, what kind of person you are, what kind of things you're interested in, and whether or not you're a good fit. It's sort of like a job application, except instead of writing a cover letter, as you would with a job application, you are writing a letter to the university to let them know why you think you should be selected to be accepted into the university. And it can have a wide range of sort of formats, this application letter. You might talk about your interests. You might talk about the things you're passionate about in the future. You might talk about your goals. You might talk about all of the things that you did in high school and what you learned from those things. I mean, this is a whole subject by itself of writing these letters to universities. And if you write a really good one and you make a case for yourself and the university says, wow, this person is very interesting, very amazing, very unique. Their GPA is a little low. The SAT could be higher, but we want them. Sometimes a student will be accepted on the basis of their letter alone, and they don't consider the GPA. They don't care about the ACT score. It happens. It happens. So that's basically how it works. Now then we have the acceptance letter. So you do all those things. They decide, the university decides, we want you. So they send you a letter, and that would be an acceptance letter. You've been accepted. Congratulations, right? But maybe if you applied to 5 different schools, maybe you got acceptance letters from 5 different schools or 4 different schools. Now it's time to decide. So there we need to weigh factors, and the student will consider things like the cost. How expensive is this school? The location. Do I want to be far away from home or not? Right? The tuition might depend on if it's in my state or not. If you go to university in your state, then you get what's called in-state tuition. And that makes it a lot cheaper than going to a university in another state. You might consider the majors available. This school has a famous business school in the university, and I want to major in business. And if I finish a degree, if I get my bachelor's degree at that school from that famous business school, then I'll be more likely to get a job at this place. So many things to think about. The different majors available, the location, how beautiful the campus is, the types of students that usually go there, the reputation of the university itself, the cost involved. There's so many different factors to consider, to weigh the different factors when making a decision. One thing then you might do after you've narrowed it down, we say narrow it down when we come down to maybe 2, is to do a campus visit. So the campus visit is when you actually go to the school and you look around and you do a tour. I got accepted to a school on Staten Island in New York, and I wasn't sure if I wanted to go there, so we drove to New York, and my family and I drove to New York and we checked it out. And one thing that happened while we were on the tour is one of the students at the school shouted to the people on the tour, including me, "Don't go here!" They screamed. So that immediately decided it for me. I'm not going to go here. If someone's screaming, "Don't go here," they have no reason to do that unless it's terrible. So I'm not going to go here. So I didn't. That's just one of the schools I visited. I ended up going to an in-state school, a school within my state, because the cost is better. And that brings me to tuition. In the United States, tuition is often very expensive. Now, there are some things that you can do to make it less. For example, if you get a scholarship, you might get a scholarship for doing really well in school or having academic excellence or achieving something. And you qualify for a scholarship, which might give you money each year. The school might also offer you a scholarship. And sometimes they offer students what's called a full ride scholarship. That means the student doesn't need to pay anything. Sometimes that's because of their home situation. Their family doesn't have a very good income, low income families. Then they might get a full ride scholarship because of that, or because of their academic excellence or something they achieved, or they're very, very good at sports and they're going to be playing basketball. Then again, they might get a scholarship. Can be for some, can be for a lot. It depends. And you have to apply for each scholarship. Now, hopefully, ideally, you want your parents to pay for it. But in the United States, that is not the most common thing. Now, many parents would like to pay for their child's tuition. Many parents do, but many parents don't for whatever reason. Sometimes they can't afford it. Sometimes they don't want to. Sometimes they just say, hey, if you want to go to school, pay for it yourself. So a lot of students have to pay for it themselves. How does an 18-year-old pay for university themselves? Easy. Borrow money from the government. So that's what people do. Either from the government or sometimes a bank, you apply for a student loan. Now, these student loans can be huge. Some people leave school with $20,000, $50,000, $100,000, $200,000 in debt. And they may get a bachelor's degree or a master's degree with that amount of debt. They leave. And then sometimes they pay it off, sometimes they can't because it's just too much. And these student loans have an interest rate very high. So it might be 6%, sometimes up to 10, 11%. 11% interest on a student loan. That is very high. I think crazy high. So this is actually, in my view, kind of a crisis in the United States right now. A disaster, in my opinion. Because in the United States, student loan amounts are over $1 trillion. 1 trillion. Not a billion, not a million. $1 trillion in student loan debt. That means students have borrowed more than $1 trillion collectively in the United States, which is crazy. And when they leave school and they have $100,000 of debt, do you think they buy a house? No. Do you think they have kids? No. They're often still living at home because they have to pay $1,000 every month just to try to pay back their student loans, which are crushing them. In my opinion, this is a serious problem happening in the United States now. And a lot of people are talking about it and trying to fix it. Some people are saying we need to just cancel it. All the student debt, cancel it. Some people are saying we need to have sort of a system where after 5 years of working, then it gets canceled or it gets reduced. There are a lot of different ideas about making this situation better, but it's kind of out of control. And I personally think it's crazy for loans of hundreds of thousands of dollars to be given to students who are 18, who don't know what $100,000 really is, with a 6% interest rate that they'll have to pay back until they're 50. It's crazy. I think it's crazy. But that's my opinion. Hey, that's just my opinion. But hopefully it will get resolved. If you're wondering, hey, does Luke have student loans? The answer is yes, I do. Luckily, my student loans are very small. I think I owe right now about $8,000. I think about $8,000 remain of my student loans. I think it was about 30 when I started, something like that. So it's not very much compared to most people. Some people I know have hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt, and it's crazy. So I guess my advice there is be rich. Good advice. Be rich. Be rich. Now, the last thing I want to mention is if you figure out the tuition, you go to the campus, you've decided, I know which school I want to go to. The last thing you'll do is on the day you arrive at the university with your parents, there will be some kind of orientation. And orientation is when they sort of get you used to the university. They make your parents feel safe that you're here. They tell you how the classes are going to work, how to book your classes, maybe how to choose your major when you're ready to choose. So that's called the orientation. It's kind of a process. After you decide, once you've arrived at your university or your campus in usually August, sometimes September, the first semester of your college life, your university life. That's the process. And I've been through it, and it's a kind of warm memory for me looking back. Not all of university, but certainly the orientation and going to school, going to university was very exciting. So that's it. Guys, if you haven't already, again, hit the like button. Subscribe and hit the like button. And if you haven't already, check out my courses in the links in the description. All right. Any questions about university, guys? I'd like to be rich too. I think there's just nothing wrong with being extremely rich. Why not? It sounds like fun. So, guys, I want to make sure I didn't miss any questions here, but you have any, after I sort of talked through the university process, any questions about this process, about things related to getting into school? Look, can I suggest something? I like watching music pop stars interviews, but for me, it's a bit complicated to get what they say. Would it be useful to pick up bits of conversation and explain? Oh, okay. So sort of like Pepe says, sort of like the videos I've done recently where we look at a clip from a TV show. I don't know if you guys have seen my last couple of videos. We look at a TV series, a short 30-second clip, and talk about what are they saying. What does this mean? A movie or a TV show. That's a good idea. That's a good idea. Any specific person you'd like me to check out, Poppy, since we're talking about it? $8,000 is a great deal. Right. I mean, $8,000, I guess, is a lot of money, but it's not a lot of money to pay back as a loan, right? Does that make sense? So most people would regard it as a small amount for a loan. $8,000. I can pay off that in a couple of years, no problem. $200,000. That's a lot. That's crazy. Crazy. Being rich is more of a mindset than a lifestyle. I like what Rolfie said there. Good point, Rolfie. You're right. Think rich. There's a book called Think and Grow Rich. Think and Grow Rich. Yeah, I'm glad you guys liked the clip. Okay, so any questions, anybody, before we call it a day? I can answer one more question if you have any questions. If you have any questions, as I drink my water. I feel like I was talking a lot. My throat's a little scratchy now. Okay, well, in that case, guys, thank you very much for joining. It was certainly good to have you. I know it's been a while since we've done one of these. Try to get back into a regular habit. Art has another question. How to understand the word saw here. They began an email correspondence which escalated into a friendship that eventually saw the then 14-year-old invited to join a trip to the Antarctic. Blah. That is quite a sentence. Art, that is quite an epic sentence. Okay. Put it up. This is the last question. Last question, guys. Art's question. Holy Moses. What's going on here? Whoa, how do I fix this? All right. Art says, how to understand the word saw here. They began an email correspondence which escalated into a friendship that eventually saw the 14-year-old invited to join a trip in the Antarctic. All right. So this is a long sentence. It's not the type of sentence that anyone would speak, but it is the type of sentence that you will see written down. You might see it written down in a non-fiction book. You might see it written down in a book of fiction, perhaps. But it's important to sort of understand the pieces here. They began an email correspondence, means they were simply writing emails back and forth. That's all, okay? Which escalated into a friendship. That means that things are moving in a certain direction. To escalate could be to go higher. So, for example, if there's a customer service problem, to escalate it is to make or ask your supervisor to deal with it because you can't, because you don't have access. So if something escalates to a friendship, before they're just talking back and forth by email. But over time, they get to know each other and they consider each other as friends, okay? So emailing, then eventually they became friends that eventually saw... Oh, someone's calling me. Oh, hold on a second. I can't answer right now. Hold on. Let me send a message. Okay. Sorry, guys. So what does saw mean here? What does saw mean here? If we say saw here, it's sort of like that's the thing that happened. This situation created a situation where this thing happened. And we use this word weirdly, oddly, to say that it's what happened as a result of the earlier things that we mentioned, right? So we were talking about university earlier, and someone wrote an excellent application letter. The letter written by this student from a small town was so powerful, so mind-blowing, so convincing that it eventually saw him in a room with the admissions officers of Harvard University, answering their questions, and finally receiving an invitation to attend the university. So it's sort of a passive way of describing that this thing is the situation that happened because of an earlier thing. It's not like this caused this to happen. It's a little bit more hands-off. It's like, here's what we're talking about. These are the events that led to it. And this is just a unique and odd way to say it. Again, something that's usually written in literature more. And it gives us a feeling of looking down over the whole thing as though we're sort of godlike in a way. We're not interacting with it. We're sort of watching it happen. And we're not saying we saw it. This thing saw this happening as though it's guiding it to happen. But it is kind of passive. Okay, so we could use it like this. Or we could use it in sort of like I used for the university essay example to talk about causes and then perhaps the result or the thing that eventually happened. And then the rest of it is the then 14-year-old invited to join a trip. That means now he's not 14, but at the time that this happened, he was 14. That's the basic idea. That's how it's used. Okay, so I hope that's clear. Did I answer your question, Art? That makes sense? Peppy Boo says Liam Gallagher. Who's that? In the corner or on the corner? Well, it depends. In the corner of the room, on the corner, where two streets meet, on the corner, standing on the corner. Or there's a hospital on the corner. In the corner of the room, there's a mouse. There's a mouse in the corner. There's a hospital on the corner. There's a mouse in the corner. There's a hospital on the corner. Yeah. All right. Guys, I think we're going to have to call it a day. So thanks again for joining. I appreciate your questions. Awesome questions. We'll try to do this next Sunday. And I hope you guys have a good weekend. And again, don't forget to hit the like button. Check out my other videos if you're interested in learning more. And subscribe. Check out the courses in the links. And I will see you guys next time. Have a good one.